long before the age of air freight and fast fashion. There was a thread that stitched together empires. Stretching over 7,000 kilometers, it wove Asia, Africa, and Europe into one cultural tapestry. This is the story of the Silk Road, the world's first global runway, where fashion found favor and commerce created culture. The term Silk Road was coined by German geographer Ferdinand von Richthofen in 1877. Centuries before, caravans were cutting across deserts, mountains, and barriers. They carried spices, gemstones, scrolls, perfumes, and of course, silk. Our story begins in the 2nd century BCE, under the reign of China's Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty. Eager to expand diplomatic and trade relations westward, he sends his envoy, Zhang Qian, on a journey that would become legend. His mission? To find allies against the Xiongnu tribes, who threatened China's northern frontier. Captured and imprisoned, later escaping, Zhang Qian spent over a decade in foreign lands, encountering unfamiliar peoples and goods that astonished the Chinese courts upon his return. Among them were war horses from Fergana, now Uzbekistan, exotic fruits, and whispers of faraway civilizations. Though he never found the military allies he sought, Zhang Qian returned with something far more valuable: a glimpse of the world beyond China's borders. This was the spark that lit the Silk Road. Silk, the shimmering fabric of royalty, became the heart of this trade. Lightweight, durable, and unlike anything in the West. It flowed from China toward Central Asia, Persia, and eventually Rome. China monopolized silk production for centuries. Techniques of sericulture, silkworm farming, and cultivation were state secrets, punishable by death if leaked. Rome fell in love with silk. So much so that Pliny the Elder once complained that it drained Rome's coffers. Yet the Roman elites couldn't resist its allure. Byzantine Emperor Justinian I in the 6th century changed history when he sent 2 Nestorian monks to smuggle silkworm eggs in hollowed-out staffs from China to Constantinople. To Roman elites, it was otherworldly. They had never felt anything so light, so smooth, so alive. It clung to the skin like mist, shimmering in the torchlight. To hold it was to feel water woven into thread. To wear it was to become a spectacle. Some condemned it as immoral, too sensual for public virtue. Yet senators still draped themselves in it behind closed doors. The Silk Road was never a single path. It was a living network of trails, bazaars, and cities. And silk was just the beginning. From India came fine cottons and intricate block printing. From Persia, woolen garments and brilliant dyes. Linens from Egypt. Fabrics traveled not just as commodities, but as ideas woven into identity. Fabrics shipped along the Silk Road sometimes carried motifs and religious iconography. Chinese cloud collars started appearing in Ottoman robes, as well as indigo dye in Central Asian tunics. Time, like cloth, was a traded commodity and became a luxury. And along the Silk Road, it was measured with wonder. By the 8th century, mechanical innovations flowed around the Silk Road. But as early as the Han Dynasty, water clocks were used to measure time in government offices and observatories. The Chinese developed advanced water clocks, like the one documented by a Buddhist monk named Yi Xing, also a mathematician and astronomer, in 725 CE. His clock combined a clepsydra, or water flow mechanism, with a rotating celestial sphere. It could track the movement of stars and planets with remarkable accuracy, all driven by a regulated drip of water. This was more than a clock. It was a cosmic model, a fusion of time and the heavens. In the Islamic world, similar projects were underway. Scholars in Baghdad and Damascus developed water clocks with automata, gears, and dials, many of which were designed to not only tell time, but also to display it beautifully, with miniature figures that chimed the hours or poured water at set intervals. In 801 CE, the Abbasid Caliph Harun al-Rashid famously sent a mechanical water clock to Charlemagne, a dazzling contraption that marked the hours with the fall of metal balls and the chirping of mechanical birds. It astonished the Carolingian court, not only for its craftsmanship, but for what it represented: a new, shared language of precision and prestige. One pivotal figure, named Al-Jazari, was a 12th century engineer from Mesopotamia, now southeast Turkey, and the famed writer of the Book of Knowledge of Ingenious Mechanical Devices, circa 1200 CE. His elephant clock, blending Indian, Greek, and Arab design, symbolized the Silk Road itself. Multicultural, meticulous, and magnificent. Standing over 3 meters tall, the elephant clock featured a life-sized elephant base, representing India. On top sat a mechanical scribe in Islamic attire, a dragon from China, phoenixes from East Asia, and zodiac wheels of Greco-Roman influence. The mechanism was powered by a water-filled basin hidden inside the elephant. As the water slowly filled a floating bowl with a hole in its base, it would sink every 30 minutes, triggering a series of levers and gears. These levers activated the mechanical scribe to move, a bird to chirp, and the mahout, the elephant rider, to strike a drum. It was a whole political theater, a visual celebration of the Silk Road's interconnectedness. Al-Jazari's castle clock, completed in 1206, was a marvel of medieval engineering and a symbolic blend of science, art, and cosmology. Standing over 11 feet tall, it wasn't merely a timekeeping device. It was a theatrical display of mechanical ingenuity, designed to resemble a grand castle. The clock featured a series of automated elements that moved in harmony every half hour. A water-driven system powered the entire mechanism, relying on a carefully regulated flow from a reservoir to move a float, which in turn controlled the timing of various automata. These included a troupe of robotic musicians who struck drums and cymbals, a rotating zodiac circle indicating the hour, and falcons that dropped balls into vases to mark the passage of time. A hidden puppet show behind two doors even played out brief performances. Al-Jazari's design went beyond function. It represented a cosmic order, integrating elements of astrology, hydraulics, and aesthetics. Its complex system of levers, pulleys, gears, and siphons anticipated many principles later found in European clockmaking, centuries before the mechanical clock became widespread in the West. The castle clock stands as one of the most elaborate and imaginative timekeeping machines of the Islamic Golden Age, reflecting a world where time, technology, and beauty were inextricably linked. At its heart was the Baghdad House of Wisdom, founded in the early 9th century under the Abbasid Caliphate. Here, scholars translated texts from Greek, Persian, Indian, and Chinese sources into Arabic, forming the largest intellectual hub of its time. Mathematics from India, astronomy from Greece, medicine from Persia, and philosophy from across Asia were all studied, debated, and refined. It was truly a melting pot and an intellectual crossroads. The vast network of libraries, from Cordoba to Samarkand, became repositories of both ancient and contemporary knowledge. These centers didn't just preserve information, they enhanced it, producing breakthroughs in optics, algebra, chemistry, and mechanics. Color moved like treasure along the Silk Road. Indigo cakes packed in cotton sacks, saffron strands sealed in clay jars, vermilion powders wrapped in goat hide. Traders protected them like currency. From the blue lapis lazuli of Afghanistan came ultramarine pigments, once more valuable than gold. It was used in illuminated manuscripts and paintings, especially during the Renaissance in Europe. Indigo, cultivated in India, became the color of royalty, devotion, and eventually denim. Cochineal from the New World, a post-Columbian dye source, would later change Europe's color palette. But long before that, the East had its own deep red. derived from madder root and safflower. These weren't just dyes, they were the signatures of empires, and the foundation of laws about who could wear what and what. In the 13th century, a conqueror would turn the Silk Road into a superhighway. Under Genghis Khan and his descendants, the Mongol Empire secured the trade routes and made cross-cultural exchange safer than ever before. Marco Polo, the famous merchant, writer, and explorer from Venice, Italy, traveled to the Mongol court in the 1270s, describing dazzling silks, fur-lined robes, and jeweled belts at Kublai Khan's court. Mongol warriors wore deel, long belted robes that inspired similar garments in Russia and Central Asia. Sumptuary laws in Ming China and the Byzantine Empire regulated who could wear which colors. Purple for emperors, yellow for the divine, black for humility. Color was not just aesthetic, it was political. In Tang and Song China, specific colors and silk qualities were restricted to the imperial family or high-ranking officials. Similarly, the Abbasid Caliphate used black clothing to signify authority, reserving certain robes for religious and political elites. In medieval Japan, the Heian courts issued detailed ordinances dictating who could wear what types of fabric and in what color combinations, maintaining the rigid social hierarchy of the time. By the late Middle Ages in Europe, silk had become so widespread, thanks in part to Silk Road trade and Mediterranean weaving centers, that monarchs across the continent passed strict sumptuary laws. In England, laws under Edward III and later Elizabeth I forbade commoners from wearing imported silks, furs, or bright dyes like scarlet and purple, which were symbols of nobility and religious office. Even in the Italian city-states, where silk manufacturing became local and prestigious, laws were passed to limit extravagance among merchants and artisans. These legal restrictions weren't just about economy or morality. They were visual politics. Clothing became a kind of public script, a wearable declaration of rank, wealth, or piety. The Silk Road was a means of transporting goods across continents, and by doing so, it triggered waves of cultural anxiety about who should be allowed to display wealth, how much was too much, and what it meant to dress above one's station. Sumptuary laws were the state's answer to those anxieties, reinforcing social order, even as trade made that order increasingly porous. Clothing was power, and power had a uniform. The Tang dynasty's cosmopolitan court dressed in Persian-inspired robes. Ottoman sultans wore kaftans dyed with Chinese pigments and tailored with Byzantine silk. Venetian merchants adapted Eastern patterns into their brocade trade, becoming Europe's fashion middlemen. In Renaissance Italy, cities like Florence adopted silks and weaves from the East, while creating guilds to guard textile secrets. The Medici family did more than simply sponsor art. They financed fashion. Fashion crossed borders with merchants, diplomats, and pilgrims. Garments bore stories of routes traveled, risks taken, and deals struck. The Silk Road was a trade network and a runway where every stitch was a signature. Even as empires fell and the Silk Road's land routes declined, its legacy endured. Textile techniques survived in Indian saris, Uzbek ikats, Japanese kimonos, and Moroccan jalabas. And silk, ever luxurious, now finds itself in haute couture and fast fashion alike. From Xi'an to Antioch, the Silk Road was never about one place or people. It was about exchange of goods, of style, of humanity. In every stitch of silk and tick of the clock, we carry its legacy. The thread never snapped, it only changed hands. This is Watch and Wardrobe. Thank you for watching.